This is Dr. David D. Shein kicking off this edition of Saving America with my weekend review commentary. With oil prices still surging and plenty of controversy around the world, what else is going on? Well, plenty. America launches the Artemis II rocket to explore the dark side of the moon. Surprising economic news for March, and the Iran conflict rolls into NATO concerns. Let's take a closer look at these and other hot stories for week 15 of 2026. The Artemis II rocket blasts into history. I'm proud to be a boomer, and an indelible part of my generation was the race to the moon. It was triggered by concerns that the USSR, despite its economic failures, might exceed America in this aspect of the first Cold War. Each space launch was broadcast live during the 1960s. We learned the critical 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 liftoff message. In the summer of 1969, I was staying in suburban Philadelphia. I recall traveling to a home in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, because that family had something unique, an old-school wood-framed color TV, so we could watch history being made. An American walked on the moon first. It's humorous to think about the size of that TV compared to even the smallest TV screens in most people's homes today, and of course the quality of that color TV wasn't very good compared to anything we have today. I was surprised to learn that a human has not been to the moon since 1972, and that the Artemis mission will take humans further from Earth than ever before. Apparently, the moon rotates in a specific manner so humans on Earth do not see the other side of the moon. On this space flight, there will be substantial photos of the so-called dark side of the moon to engage a current generation. Reflecting on key memories, one of the best-selling record albums of all time was The Dark Side of the Moon, released by Pink Floyd in 1973. The album has spent nearly 1,000 weeks on Billboard Top 100 over the 5 decades since its release. It has sold 50 million copies, and of all things, a surge in sales last year. It stands as a testament to rock history, but also the human fascination with what we cannot see. Despite the historical perspective, not everyone is supportive of this effort. With the huge public debt and other costs of living, does America really need to do this? My answer is a resounding yes. I wrote an article that's available on a publication site called SSRN about 2 years ago concerning the new Cold War. Regarding the relevance of this space mission to the new Cold War, I emphasize that America must have the capability in the event of an international incident to disable or destroy every enemy satellite in a matter of minutes, perhaps seconds. Control of outer space is as critical as controlling the subsurface of the seas here on Earth. There was also concern expressed by factions in the U.S. government that the CCP would put a settlement on the moon and then claim the entire moon for itself. That should never happen. If anyone listening does not agree, you have not been paying attention to the world path that we're in today. The striking failure of America on the world stage since the year 2000 have encouraged the CCP and its few allies. This includes the failures in Afghanistan and Iraq, allowing Venezuela to get where it is under Maduro, and then ignoring the threat of Iran and underestimating the ability to gain nuclear weapons, open borders under the fool Biden, and a surging national debt under all recent presidents. Establishing a permanent mission on the moon with America's allies could be a turning point in future, cementing America's place as the leader of the free world. Note that there is a Canadian on this flight, and Japan and Saudi Arabia are cooperating for future missions. There's one woman out of the 4 astronauts on this flight. There is a special shielding since there's a lot of radiation exposure, and I recently learned women are more sensitive to that radiation than men. Artemis II gives America a needed shot in the arm as we approach the 250th anniversary of the United States this July 4th. Pulling Maduro out of Venezuela and the extensive bombing of Iran also helps to lay the groundwork for an American recovery. proving our much-needed leadership in what was an otherwise void where terrorism was running rampant. If you've reached this point in the show and you have enjoyed listening, please head over to YouTube or Patreon at Dr. Dave Saves America for more exclusive content. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe or send an email to Brushwood Media Network. Thank you for listening, and now on with our show. Surprising economic news for March. After some months of bad news for the Trump economy, March gave the president a much-needed boost after a reported loss of more than 130,000 jobs in February. In contrast, March added 178,000 jobs, and unemployment ticked down to 4.3%. Not surprisingly, due to our aging population, healthcare was the leading growth sector of our economy. Another positive was reduction in federal employment, so less of a drain on our taxpayers. The slight drop in the unemployment rate was not all good news. Total employment in the U.S. dropped by about 400,000 people. That's a big number. A statistic that people like me track is the percent of the population in the workforce. The U.S. dropped to a fairly low level of 61.9%. A good level would be 63% or more. On the positive side, wages on average increased 3.3%, or well beyond the current estimated inflation rate. The Iran conflict rolls into NATO concerns. With the war raging on, the control of the Strait of Hormuz, where 20% of the world's oil should be passing through daily, is a critical factor. Trump has expressed frustration at the lack of support from so-called allies. This is especially acute since America does not need this oil. Europe and Asia do. In contrast, there are rumors that France is paying ransom to Iran to get some oil through the Strait, and Spain has banned the U.S. from using any of its airspace in the effort to protect Europe from these terrorists. Not sure what the heck's going on there. The UK has finally provided some lukewarm support after being all against the effort in the beginning. So Trump, in both his first and current administrations, has expressed the importance that NATO countries pay their fair share and support the combined military strengthening efforts. This is only fair since they are closer to the risk than the U.S. The reluctance of NATO members to pull their weight in Iran could have major consequences. The U.S. may either dramatically reduce its participation in NATO or withdraw altogether. For a possible explanation, a number of European countries, as well as the UK, have experienced an influx of a huge number of Muslims. Instead of these immigrants assimilating, it appears that they have been damaging the cultures of the countries that have generously taken them in. Bluntly, the leadership of these damaged countries may not have the guts to buck these activist minorities. This is not a good track, and I expect there will soon be major rebellions by the majority of the populations of these countries. At least I hope so. Love that fan mail. Judy wrote to me last week via the Brushwood Network. Hi, I listen to your network all the time and love the music and shows. Can I leave a comment for the doctor that does save America? I'm a Christian and also Republican and voted for President Trump. However, I am very sad and so disappointed with what is going on with the war and food and fuel costs. Does the doctor see an end in sight? I am so regretful I voted the way I did. Now, I need some positive outlook. We really appreciate hearing from our audience. I do see a lot of pain in America. I know a lot of Trump supporters are disappointed that he engaged in this foreign war. I know others are still concerned about pulling Maduro out of Venezuela. My view on the international scene is that both are long-term positives. Things seem to be evolving in the right direction in Venezuela. With regard to Iran, they were going to hold the whole world hostage. The chokehold over the Strait of Hormuz would be nothing compared to a nuclear Iran under the crazies that were running the place. This should have been done by Jimmy Carter when our embassy was seized 47 years ago. Frankly, I think this is very last minute, and this is a bipartisan comment since we have had both GOP and Dem presidents who have not effectively dealt with this incredible threat to civilization itself. For the record, the worst was Obama, who actually sent pallets of cash to the regime. My concern now is that Trump is under so much pressure, he will not completely destroy this regime. If anything is left, I believe they will come back and do even more harm. I expect America will seize Carg Island and take military control of the Strait. If so, gas prices should quickly decline to pre-Iran levels, maybe even lower. So let's see what happens. There are a lot of reports of a MAGA split. I want to underscore, I am not a MAGA person. I'm a lifetime old-fashioned conservative. I hope at some point my advice to the Trump administration will start to reach some key folks, such as under-promise and over-deliver. Still, compared to the two prior Dem administrations, Trump is much closer to where America needs to be. The alternative is a Dem administration that favors illegals over citizens. The recent disasters in New York City and the state of Virginia show them to be soft on crime and in love with high taxes. They also continue to push an unrealistic climate agenda and even campaign against businesses. The public liabilities in New York State and California are enormous. I believe Trump has the backbone to prevent the feds from bailing out either state. FBI warns of data security risks foreign mobile apps. Because I regard the CCP as the greatest risk to all of world civilization, I actively try not to buy things made in China. Unfortunately, that is simply not easy. I hope Trump's push to bring manufacturing back into the U.S. will make this much easier. However, manufactured items are not the only risk. How about apps? The FBI announced on March 31st that it has identified data security risks from foreign developed mobile apps used in the United States. The announcement noted that China requires apps originated in China to be accessible to the CCP. That's really all I needed to hear. Famously, TikTok is the best known. Given that CCP-controlled ByteDance still owns 20% of USA TikTok, I will not touch that social media app. Other apps to boycott include CapCut, something called Pixverse, and of course, encrypted message app Telegram. I note that when fraudsters try to engage with me, they often try to switch to WhatsApp or Telegram for communication instead of using more traditional forms of messaging. Naturally, I pass on all such offers. An important thing to avoid are the Chinese retail apps Shein and Temu. The FBI suggests using the major app stores here in the U.S. and not unfamiliar apps or apps that require access to the rest of your device. So far, 3 states have banned the use of the CCP AI app Deepseek, and I believe that the U.S. military has banned it as well. The entire federal government should do the same. Retro Trump returns. While I'm not a MAGA person, I do support Trump in many of his efforts. I do call him out for his failures. I was critical of his cabinet and key person staffing during his first administration. There were failures like Jeff Sessions for Attorney General and keeping the FBI director that he inherited. Frankly, I really liked his second-term cabinet. Well, the tide is turning with the terminations of Kristi Noem at DHS, quickly followed by Pam Bondi as Attorney General. Firing 2 women in his cabinet is not going to help with his largest holdout group, educated women. Noem was replaced by a white senator from Oklahoma, and Bondi's temporary replacement is also a white male. Further, other possible replacements that have been mentioned so far are all white males. Hey, nothing wrong with white males. After all, I am one. However, the optics suck, and this feeds right into the left's message that Trump is anti-female and anti-minority. I believe the case against Noem was much stronger than the one against Bondi. The key criticisms of her were that Epstein file release, where there are no winners, and that big prosecutions have not started yet. However, I note as an attorney, it takes time to put strong cases together. No point bringing a premature case and then losing it. The joke known as Newsom. Some intellectually challenged members of the media have identified California's outgoing governor, Gavin Newsom, who I label as no sense, as the leading candidate to be the Dems' presidential candidate. I regard this as a joke. Dazed and confused, Biden was pulled out of the 2024 presidential race late in the game. I believe you'll see the powers that be pull this disgrace to America out of the presidential bid for 2028 earlier rather than later. It's just a question of when. California has a huge public debt load complicated by an exodus of higher income residents and many businesses. I recently heard that Los Angeles has lost the most residents of any major American city over the last year. Gas prices are just crazy out there. As I mentioned in an earlier show, 2 refineries have closed in California, limiting supply. California has its own unique fuel mix, which artificially inflates the base cost of the fuel. The California gas tax is ridiculous, and no sense won't temporarily lower it to help his own citizens. I guess he hopes the Iran war will drag on and he can blame it on Trump. Hey, no sense, dream on. The situation in California has been made worse by fraudsters looting different public welfare programs. The latest scam to serve a blow to the presidential hopeful were fake hospices. The FBI just announced the arrest of about half of the 15 people suspected in an organized hospice care fraud scheme based out of Los Angeles. The fraud may have totaled $60 million. Reports are that people were paid to pretend to be hospice patients. Some were supposedly there for as long as 5 years. Hey, that should have been a red flag to the regulators right there. Again, I call on total elimination of federal funding for all such programs. Each state can then decide what to spend its own money on. I bet they watch it a lot closer when it's their money, not Fed money that many regard as free. The coup de grace for the campaign for No Sense is his wife. She's been tied to some real doozies lately. I believe with the power of social media, her top 10 weird or dumb things will convince even Dems that you can't have this woman as First Lady. As we celebrated Easter and Passover during the past week, many of us had Good Friday holiday off of work. This is a custom that goes back centuries and honors the Judeo-Christian heritage of our country. I hope all of you who do celebrate either holiday had a great weekend. However, there's always some miscreant who will follow up even something this easy. The city of Houston tried to label Good Friday this year as spring holiday. Fortunately, the opposition was vigorous and quick. A highly visible critic of this follow-up was Congressman Troy Nehls. He bluntly stated that this is a major Christian holiday tied to Easter and that there would not be a Good Friday but for the Christian traditions tied to this important weekend. The good news, the city administration quickly backed down.
This is Dr. David D. Shein. Thanks for joining me for this special edition of Saving America. Remember, a new Saving America show is aired on the Brushwood Media Network every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Listen on any of the 16 network stations, Apple or Google mobile app, Apple CarPlay, TuneIn, Smart Speaker, and all smart TVs. Find more information at the brushwoodmedianetwork.com. Please be sure to join us each week. We welcome and love your feedback from our growing audience.